Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Big Boss Show. It's a Big Boss show that comes to you every week with somebody that may have not always been a big boss, but shares his or her perspective that we can learn from. Today, I'm joined by a very special guest. Alison Ver Halen is a marketer and SEO strategist who has always loved writing, but was told when she was growing up to choose a more practical career. After graduating with a degree in English and psychology, she got an opportunity to write blog posts for her law firm, and she jumped at the chance to get paid to write. She has never looked back. Allison, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Cool. So, how did you get into writing? How and why?
Yeah, well, like I said in my intro, I've always loved writing. I was always writing as a kid. Was definitely discouraged from choosing that as a career rather than a hobby. But I just couldn't stay away from English. When I got to college, I kept taking English classes, and then I fell into psychology. I always like to say that English and psychology makes the perfect degree for content marketing, even though I had no idea what content marketing was, hadn't even heard of it. I was planning on working in publishing because I figured if I couldn't make a living writing books, maybe I could make a living making books. But I graduated in 2009, right after the job market crashed. So there were no jobs to be had in publishing or really anywhere else. So I was a receptionist. I was in customer service. They were jobs. They were not careers. Found myself between jobs at one point, and my roommate at the time, her dad, who was an attorney, was awesome and offered to give me stuff to do around his office until I got back on my feet. And one of the things he needed was someone to write blog posts for his law firm. Yeah, like I said in my bio, I was so happy to get paid to write. So I jumped at the chance and I started writing for him, and then for an associate of his, and then for some friends of mine, and did eventually get another day job, but I kept writing on the side, and it just kept growing to the point where I could not do both anymore. So quit the day job, and I've been writing full time ever since.
That's so awesome. Take me back to '08. How was that? How was that like? The
Which
I
part?
mean, I just can imagine that, coming out of college and, not, there's a huge, the biggest recession that we had probably in a while. What was that like?
Scary, very scary. Very frustrating because growing up, I had always been told that you get good grades, you go to school, you go to college, you get your degree, and you won't end up flipping burgers. And so me and my friends and my generation, we did everything we were supposed to do, and many of us ended up flipping burgers and answering phones and feeding old people and doing all these things that we were told we would not have to do if we did all the right things. So it was very frustrating, but turned out well for me because I probably would never have ended up in this career if it had not been for that recession.
Yeah, it's amazing. I talk to so many people, and they're always like, the passion is what gets you to, you want to feel good when you coming in Monday morning.
Mhm.
Is it more like nonfiction or fiction writing?
The blogging is always nonfiction. So even if there is a storytelling element, and I do always encourage that people incorporate at least a little bit of a storytelling element into their blog, because that's what's going to rope people in. But that story should always be around the pain point that your customers are really feeling in their lives, because that's what's going to resonate with them. And then you should always be providing actionable tips and tricks that they can use. You need to provide information in the blog to make it valuable and to position yourself as an expert in your field.
Okay. Do you have a blog? Can you tell people how to get to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, it is V as in Victor, writingservices.com. And all my blog posts are right there on that homepage.
Okay, cool. So what have you been up to? What's next?
Actually, what's next is getting more into the strategy of it. So, like I said, I fell into it because of my writing skills, and that's what got me started in this. But like I said in my bio, I'm a content marketer and SEO strategist, just because at this point, you cannot blog without knowing at least something about SEO. So I am currently working more and more on strengthening my SEO skills and my SEO knowledge, as well as my strategy around content. It's not enough anymore to just put up a blog post once in a while and expect that everyone will find it and love it and buy from you. You need to have a mapped out funnel. You need to have content for every stage of the funnel, and you need to know how to lead people through that funnel so that you can actually engage those leads who find your website and get them all the way to that last stage, which is to buy from from you. So that's what I've been working on more and more now, is the strategy part of content marketing and SEO.
Awesome. What are some of the businesses that you typically work with?
Well, I did start writing for an attorney, so I have definitely leveraged that to work with more attorneys. Those are people who definitely see the value of content marketing and are not great at doing it themselves. So they are usually more than happy to hire someone like me to take over it for them. Financial planners and advisors is another group that I write for, and that they're very similar in that they tend to, get stuck in their own heads and the jargon that they use in their day-to-day business. And that's not necessarily what people are looking for. That's not the kind of content that's going to engage their prospects. So I can take that complicated technical information and transform it into something that is readable and engaging, and that people will actually want to read. And again, will actually lead them through the buyer journey.
Why do you think that more people aren't hiring writers?
I don't think there's a lot of, I don't think people understand the value of writers. I see a lot of people on Upwork, for example, hiring people who don't live in the US, whose first language is not English, but they say they can get you a blog for a few dollars. And so they go for it, and they get that super cheap deal because it's all about the bottom line. But that's not quality content. That's not content that's going to drive results for you. And there are a lot of people who are convinced they can do it themselves. They don't recognize that there's a difference between writing skills and blogging skills. Yes, there's a lot of overlap, but you can, the attorney I started writing for an example, was writing his own blog posts. And of course he has great writing skills, but he did not have good blogging skills. And his blogs were much more effective after I took over writing for him. But everyone, especially when things get tight, people want to tighten their belt and they don't want to spend money on stuff. And they think, well, I can just write my own blog posts. But most of the time they don't. Writing takes a lot of time. And especially if you're running your own business, there's a million other things to do. And blogging tends to fall by the wayside, and their traffic definitely suffers as a result.
Okay. You think people could self teach themselves writing?
I do. I did teach myself a lot. I obviously, like I said, I went to college and did study English and spent a lot of time studying and discussing this. But there's a lot of information out there on the internet. There are lots of books. I write about this on my blog on how to write better, on how to blog better. So it is possible if you have the time. It's just very time consuming to teach yourself to write, and then to actually implement the practice.
What if you have a great company and a great product, but you don't know what to write about, or you don't know what you would hire somebody to write about?
Well, if they hire me, that's part of what I offer, is coming up with those topics to cover, and that's all research based. I have a whole blog post and a whole presentation that I give all about ways to come up with things to write about. I always, just a few examples are things like looking at the competition and seeing what topics they're covering, because if they're covering it, there's probably a reason. So I always think that's something super valuable to check out. Keyword research is big for me, just seeing what people are researching. Answerthepublic.com is a free online software that I use. There's a free version and a paid version. For most people, the free version is fine, but you can just put in any keyword or search term or category, and it will generate the most commonly asked questions from the internet using that word or that search term. So that's a super valuable tool that I use to come up with blog post topics all the time.
What if somebody has something that they're not really, that they've been doing for a while? They've been trying to do this content marketing, writing thing, but it's just not working for them, and it's been a while. Like, when do you know when to call it quits and just go back on your old marketing method?
I would say give it at least 6 months. It takes 2 to 3 months for Google to even index and categorize the content after it's been published. So most people start seeing results from their blog posts after a few months. If you're just starting out, I'd say give it at least a year or two, just because when your website is new, it takes a while for your website to gain Google's trust. We call that domain authority in the SEO terms, just because that means that Google looks at your website and goes, this is a quality website. They've got good content on there. This is a website that we like and we trust and we want to direct our users to. And it doesn't happen overnight. So yeah, I would say give it at least a year or two.
Okay. Why do you think it's so important right now for us to have writers and for us to have writing?
It's how you stand out in the competition, especially if you're in a B2B industry or professional services industry. Blogging is a great way to position yourself as an authority, to demonstrate your expertise, to show people, hey, here's all the stuff that I know. Whereas if someone goes to a website and maybe there's just a few landing pages and there's no proof, so to speak, that they really know what they're talking about, the blogs are so much more engaging and so much more effective at convincing people to work with you, especially, like I said, in the B2B professional services industry. On average, people are going to read like 7 to 9 pieces of content before making a buying decision. And most of that content is going to come from your blog.
Okay. Do you ever use ghostwriters?
I do not. No, I'm usually the ghostwriter that people hire for their blog.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay. Can you tell people one more time where they can reach you, how they can reach you?
Yeah, so my website is V as in Victor, writingservices.com.
Okay. Is there anything else that you want to mention?
Not off the top of my head, no. I think that pretty much covers it.
Okay. And how much fees are we talking here?
So I charge about 40 cents per word. So for example, for like a 500 word post, it's $200. And anytime someone wants me to write content, if they're putting up a new website and they need landing pages, it's a flat $200 per web page.
So I think what you're doing is super huge, and obviously the law offices, that's one of their biggest challenges is getting that writing and getting those words to, it's so complicated. But I definitely think that what you're doing is huge, and I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.